Hello, everyone. Hello, Marco.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. I am Anna from GreenGeeks, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Choose Typography and Color for Your WordPress Website. I am particularly very excited about this webinar because I'm looking forward to learning more about choosing fonts and choosing the right colors for my sites. So before we start the webinar, I wanted to say a couple of words about GreenGeeks, as I always do. We're a 300% green energy web hosting provider, which essentially means we put back 3 times the amount we consume of power we're consuming to the grid in the form of renewable energy. We have been recognized by the US EPA since 2009 as a green power partner. We offer share hosting, reseller hosting, VPS hosting, and dedicated server. So I wanted to remind everyone to please put questions in the Q&A for Marco to answer at the end. Please, if you want to write in the chat, go ahead, but select panelists and attendees, all panelists and attendees, so that everybody can see your comments. And we're recording this as always, so if you have to step away, don't worry, because you're gonna get a copy of the recording. And there, today we don't have anybody else from the team. It's just Marco and I. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Marco. Marco, introduce yourself and start the
Hello,
webinar.
everybody. My name is Marco Berrocal. I guess we shall begin, no? So I work at partner relations here at GreenGeeks. For those who don't know me, I'm also a senior web developer and designer out of Costa Rica. And today I am really excited. Well, I'm actually always excited when it comes to webinars, but today I'm particularly excited because we are going to talk about a topic that is it's very important when it comes to designing, and it's how to choose typography and colors for your particular website. I like this topic because one of the things that you do when you start designing is that it's really difficult to choose colors and fonts for your particular project, for your business, or for whatever it is that you're working on the web. When I started, I struggled tremendously with both. I felt I wasn't doing a good job, and I eventually it got to me that what I was doing wrong was that I wasn't understanding the theory behind it very well. So the decisions that I was making weren't really justified when it came to choosing both. So when you understand both, and I hope this is one of the objectives here at this webinar, today's webinar, you will become a person. You will become a better designer. Doesn't matter if you do it for clients or if you're doing it for yourself. You are going to make better decisions because you can justify the decisions that you took based on either the theory or something that deviates a little bit from the theory. I like to think that both are half science, half art. It's the same when running businesses. I mean, you have the theory when it comes to running businesses, but ultimately it's also an art of feelings and on making the right decisions. So today we're going to learn about color, the interaction of color in design, through concepts such as complementation, contrast, vibrancy, shadows, and the like. Okay. The second thing we're going to learn is we're going to learn a lot about type, about fonts, about what a font is, what types of fonts out there, what hierarchy exists between fonts, spacing, negative spacing, things of that nature, and of course, color. And ultimately, I will guide you through the process on how to choose both. Because everybody has their own way of doing things, but I'm going to show you a little bit how I work behind the scenes so that you can pick bits here and there, or you can use all the entire thing. I also like to think that this is sometimes it's not a recipe where everything that I say it's going to be 100% correct. I mean, everybody will have their own recipe, and my objective really is to go through my process, that you understand the theory, so that you can more or less have your own process from here on. Why am I also excited about this is because 20 years ago, the web was a little bit in diapers still, and you didn't have the capacity of choosing your own fonts, and colors were still a little bit limited because of monitor resolutions. We weren't, we weren't using the beautiful monitors that we're using today. So colors and type was something that was really limited to a system, to a particular operating system. I remember back in the days when people tell you, well, you have to use web safe fonts, which are more or less fonts that everybody had installed on their computers, such as Arial, Verdana, Georgia, and the like. Around 2000 and 2005, I don't remember the dates exactly, news, the web, as it goes forward, as it pushes forward, as it adds more stuff, it had the ability of adding fonts made by others, by third people, and you could serve them on your website, and you can load them for your particular website and display them. So that opened a huge can of, it's not worms, of presents, I would say. It opened a huge box of presents because you were able to use a lot of beautiful fonts out there that previously you weren't able to. So that gave a lot of sites their distinguished look. So, fast forward to today, there's a lot of things going on in terms of type, and we're going to go over through them. So, what are we going to need today to get things going? Well, first of all, I am going to say Adobe Suite. It's not 100% required. You can use free tools out there. I usually don't use them, and but I will explain why as I use Adobe Suite. Adobe Suite is a suite that I've used for designing since I think 2007 or so, and it's gotten a lot better in terms of using both of these things, using both color and type in my in the design project. So I highly recommend it. I know there are other tools out there. Some of them are free, some of them are not, but it's something I recommend. And if you have the opportunity to do so, I think it's a very, really, really good investment. The second thing we're going to need to practice a lot. I hope this webinar will instill the theory and the thought process behind it, but ultimately, you're going to have to practice a lot. You're going to have to fail a lot. Choosing fonts and colors is a process that will take a lot of hours, sometimes even days. It's not something that you can do in a matter of minutes, because I truly believe that if you're doing it in minutes, you aren't thinking it through thoroughly. You're not making it. I would say you haven't thought out the process of getting to that specific point. And sometimes you're going to have to discard a lot, and you're going to have to throw a lot of your work. Again, it's sometimes people see it as half empty, half full. I see it as half full, because when you fail, when you discard, you learn. So, it's the two things that we're going to need. I think this is the first webinar where we're not going to interact a lot with hosting platform. I mean, you can have your WordPress site up and running, and I'll mention it to you how to get, your types onto your WordPress website, but it's going to be really, really brief. Okay. So on to the next slide. So choosing fonts and colors, it's like dressing for the occasion, okay? And I always joke about this. No, you're not Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg in the way that you can always dress, using jeans and a black T-shirt wherever you go. So choosing fonts and colors feels a lot like this. It feels a lot like staring at your closet, and you are wondering, what am I going to put for this occasion? And you will have different clothes. You will have some clothes that are amongst your favorites. I sure have. I have a pair of jeans that I pretty much use it for everything. I love them, but sometimes you got to admit that the occasion doesn't merit it. For example, if I'm going to a fancy dinner, I got to dress fancy, or if I'm going to the beach, well, I can dress a little bit lighter and more colorful and whatnot. Everybody has their own style, but choosing fonts and colors feels exactly like this process. They behave the same way. If I use a, I don't know, a suit to go to the beach, I will look completely out of place, and vice versa. If I use beach clothes to go to a fancy dinner, I'm going to look completely odd at the place. So fonts and colors behave exactly this way. So our job is to select those clothing that suit the occasion the best. So the occasion in this example is your particular website. How should it behave? How should it be perceived? How should it feel like on a social event and whatnot? So different fonts and different colors will do that. Okay. So we're going to start with colors today. I like to give this quote a lot when it comes to doing jobs such as these. That a thousand-step journey will always begin with one step, which is the first. It's an Asian proverb. Because I say this because when you are designing and when you're starting your own web project or you're designing your own website for your own business, it can be really intimidating because you don't know where to start. You have this blank screen and you are like, okay, what should I do now? I think over the years, as I have done sites for both myself and other businesses out there, I think, and it doesn't matter if it's for your particular website, I think it's best to have both ready before you start. By both, I mean the colors and typography. It's best if you have them both ready to go, chosen, and there at the moment of truth when you just start doing it, because all of those decisions have already been made, and you can just start mocking up your website. It doesn't matter if you're going to design it using Photoshop or XD, or if you're going to go straight into a web page builder such as Elementor. You're going to have your stuff ready. You're going to be good to go, and it's going to go look good. Okay. So my first tip will always be respect the branding. Your logo will be your point of reference. I put Coca-Cola here because, as you can infer from this image, you will know which one is the correct image, right? The correct image will be obviously the one on the left. If you do if you work for Coca-Cola and you make a change and you use either the one at the center or the one at the right, chances are you're going to be out of a job as a designer the following day. But my point here is that your logo will have colors of their own, so it's a good starting point to base your colors off the logo. So in theory or practically, I always start with the logo and I start picking colors based on the logo. I use the theory behind the logo. I use the theory using the logo colors as my point of reference. So, for example, if I have red, I can start picking colors using the color theory based on this red, Coca-Cola red, and I can start having my own color palette out of it. So a good logo is usually a good starting point for small projects, for small businesses out there. This should be easy because it's your decision. It's going to be your call. It's going to be your leadership. But for larger organizations, you may have a branding book that you have to adhere by, you have to obey it in order to do it. Like Coca-Cola, I'm sure they have a branding book, and usually large companies will give you a branding book and saying, listen, these are the colors that we use, these are the only colors that you're going to use, and that's going to be easier to do because all the guesswork has been taken out of the way. But at the same time, it's kind of, it constrains things a little because you can't go out of that box. But for small businesses, if you're doing your website, usually a logo is a great starting point. Typically, logos have few colors. They should have few colors. So, pick the colors and start your way through. Now, how to pick the colors? There are color picking tools out there. What I usually do is I just take a screenshot of the logo, or I'll just paste the logo within Illustrator or Photoshop, and I start picking the colors from there. But if you don't have that, there's Google Chrome or Firefox extensions that allow you to use something called the Color Picker tool. And what it does is it will copy your color based on an hexadecimal code. It's a 6-digit code that it's called hexadecimal code, and that translates into a particular color. The second tip I would like to say is that psychology matters. Colors mean something. This is something called a color wheel. Usually, colors are presented like that on the web. It's like the rainbow, really. They go from, I'm not sure from which color to which color they go because it's a circle. So I don't know where to start, but it's usually like that. I mean, this covers all the colors in that there are out there. And colors is perception. Color is perception. There is a psychology behind it. It influences what we think and ultimately do. Okay, so for example, if I was to tell you that red means something, you're going to think about a few things when I mention you the color red. So red can mean passion, and it can mean love, it can mean energy, but it can also mean danger. So when you are doing, like for example, a button, for example, do you want it to have it red? And you're going to have to think about the context. Is it going to mean something that is going to be danger, or is it something that you're really, really excited, full of energy, that you want them to do? So those are the decisions that you got to make when you're designing things. Like for example, yellow means happiness, it means optimism, and orange means warmth, but it can also mean be careful. Okay, so how do I get these perceptions or objectives for my project? Well, if you're doing this website for yourself, you're going to have to ask yourself some serious questions about who your audience is. I like to quote my father with this. He's a veterinarian pathologist, and many years ago, he told me that when it comes to curing animals, he said 80% were questions answers he got out of asking questions to the client, and the other 20 was the actual knowledge that he had. So this is a good analogy, and this is something that you can ask either your client or ask yourself when you are doing your website. What is the perception? What are the feelings that you want to invoke out of your website? So having based that, you're going to land some colors here and there, and to do this, you need to know your audience. You need to know who your customers are. You need to know what they do, how they think, where are they from, what their age group is. Is it mostly male, female, kids, elderly, stuff of that nature, so that you can more or less know what colors to use, because it's not the same color scheme, or it's not going to be the same occasion to design a website for example, if you're a lawyer, as in, for example, if you are working with a kindergarten and you want to work with kids. It's not the same audience, it's not going to be the same feelings, and ultimately it's not going to be the same color palette. One has the perception, the feeling of being more friendly, more vibrant, more kiddie, and the other has far more serious. So color wise, I would think that the lawyer website will represent something more blue, dark blue, a little bit of black, gray, white. Whereas the kids website, I can more or less say, okay, I'm going to do this more vibrant. I'm going to use green. I'm going to use blue. I might use even red and stuff of that nature. So it's always good to ask that. For example, here at GreenGeeks, obviously we use a lot of green. Green means wealth. It means nature. It means success, health, peace, but we also combine it with shades of blue on the website. And as you can infer, or you can see on these particular slides that I've made, I use blue and green a lot. So those are more or less the messages that I want to convey when it comes to for this particular webinar, for this presentation. But every business is going to have their own color scheme, and because the psychology matters. So what I want you to think about is what positive feelings does the color evoke, but also what possible pitfalls the color might have if you overdo it. Like, for example, if you do gray a lot, if you use gray a lot, it means a lot of sophistication, a lot of formality. But if you make everything gray, it's going to look completely dull. So it's like I said, it's half science, it's half art. It's something that you, as a designer or business owner, need to know how to balance it. Okay. Color theory also matters. We're going to discuss the color theory in a bit. You should see this slide on the right here. It's called a color wheel. Like I said, it's both science and art. The first guy to actually do a color wheel was a guy called Isaac Newton. I'm sure you're all heard of him. He was the guy who designed the first color wheel. I think it's 3 centuries ago already. And there are three primary colors out there. They're red, blue, and yellow. So basically, all the colors you see are a mixture of both, with different shades of light. Because and I also would like to say something about using black or using white. in theory, black is not a color. It's just or white. White is just the presence of light, absolute light. There's light all around, and you see everything white. That's what the color truly is. Whereas black is the absence of light. If you go into a room that has absolutely no light, it's going to get dark. It's going to feel dark. It's because there is no light. And if you absolutely if the night falls, it's going to be even less light, and it's going to look pitch black. That's what black truly is. So it's the absence of light. And this is why the fifth point I mentioned shades, because, and I'll get there in a bit, but yeah, no, I'm going to say it now. Shades, because shades are really a color that you can use, and you can more or less adjust the light. You can add more light so that it gravitates towards white, or you can take away light so it goes all the way to it being black. But going back to the color theory, the first character aspect is that there are complementary colors out there. So basically, it means that they're opposite of each other. If you look at the graph, and I'm sorry, it got cut off a little bit, you see that green is complemented by red. So basically, that means that green and red go together quite well. That's why you see it a lot with Christmas, and you see it sometimes with Coca-Cola as well. Green and red complement each other well. So going back to the example of the logo, so if I were to pick a logo and it's a kind of reddish color, if I want to use the complementary color with it, chances are I'm going to land with some green. Okay. Analogous colors means basically that they're next to each other. If you look at the center image, the top center image of this slide, it's going to be colors that are basically next to each other within the color wheel. So it's a good mixture, because they smooth it, the transition very well from one to the other. Again, if you want to use an analogous color, that's fine too, but you are basing the analogous color off of your logo, which is even better. Triadic color, it's a triangle, as you can see, and what it means is that it's colors that are evenly spaced out within the color wheel. Again, if you want to mix it up, if you want to add a shade of purple, for example, in this, or if you have a green, you can add a shade of purple, and you can add a shade of orange, and it's going to look quite well on your particular website. So again, it's evenly spaced out. It's three colors. And going back to the logo analogy, I usually pick also the triadic colors off of the logo. I'm going to explain to you why I do that in a bit. But I usually, before I start saving those colors. So if my logo was to have two colors, I would get the complementary colors of color one, analogous colors of color one, triadic colors of color one, and so forth and so forth. And then with color two, I will do the exact same exercise. And next thing you know, I'm going to have a huge palette of colors that are based off of the theory. Okay, but hold that thought there for a bit. The square basically means two sets of complementary colors. So going back into our square, which is the bottom right of the second row, the green and red complement each other, but the blue and orange complement each other as well. So again, it's a beautiful transition. It's a good combination. And once again, I do this for the logo, and I pick those four colors and I save them. The last item, I mentioned them, but I will mention it again. Shades. So a shade is basically if I pick the red and I go into opposite directions, both going towards a lot of light and going towards no light. So I should end up with black on one side and white on the other. Okay. So again, I usually save them all. I save all the shades of a particular color for the logo, for the project that I'm working on, so that I have all the shades that I'm going to need should I need them. Okay. Now let's discuss the resources out there. Now let's view some of the sites that allow you to view safe color schemes out there. I don't know why this URL popped up there, but it's okay. The first of all, the one I use is I use it a lot. Is called Adobe Color. So if I go to color.adobe.com, this is going to open this thing. And as you can see, let me zoom in a little. As you can see on the top left, on the my left on the screen, I have all these concepts that I previously discussed with you guys. So going back to the logo example, and I'm going to go to greengeeks.com. I'm going to go to greengeeks.com and I'm going to save the logo and I'm just going to drag it here. And I have the logo over here. So right now, Green Geeks only has one color, which is this green. It has this black as well, but it's. I usually avoid using black as one of my colors within the logo. It's not that I don't use them within the logo. It's just that I don't include it as part of the color scheme for the particular color process that I go through. Because I mean, black is black. You can't go a lot with it. I mean, you can only go with shades going to white, but black doesn't have these analogous or complementary kind of things. So I really don't use it. The same with white. I don't use it. So I usually go with colors that aren't either white or black. Gray, I sometimes use it. It depends on the context, and ultimately, I will be completely honest with you. It depends on the time, because, like I said, saving these colors, going through this process of saving them, viewing them, and putting them out there for my particular project, it takes a lot of time. So if I don't have the time, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm definitely not going to do it. So I have Illustrator open here. It's a tool I use a lot. I absolutely love Illustrator. So I'm going to pick the color out there, and to pick the color, I usually go to the eyedropper tool, which is this guy over here. I go hit eye, and then I have my color over here. This is the hexadecimal color, the value for GreenGeeks. So I'm going to go back into Adobe. I'm going to go back into Adobe, and I'm just going to paste this value. And as you can see, this opens all the analogous colors that you have, and you have them right here. So what do I do with this? Usually, and this is also the reasons why I use it a lot, is Adobe Suite, is because I can save this. I can save this to different projects. So if I go over here and hit the plus sign, and I'm going to say Green Geeks webinar, I can go over here, hit the create button, and I'm going to say analogous over here. Analogous. I will always get that wrong. And I'm going to save that. And the cool thing about that is because I use XD, Adobe XD. It's this tool over here. I use it to prototype a lot, to prototype websites. I usually design before I fully commit to building a website, either with Elementor or actual code, because I can. It's a slower process. It's obviously faster to develop and go straight into the editor, but I think it's best because it's easier to discard, it's easier to show to the client, and it's also easier for myself to keep track and come to a final decision. The process is up to you, but I usually prefer it this way. I prefer to design a website like that. If you can see, I have this project over here. I have this project over here that I designed for a client. So, sorry, that takes a little bit. Hold on. Okay. So I usually, oh, it is. So I have it over here. So usually I just design and I show this to the client, and the client will make the changes. He will say yes or no. As you can see here, my palette here, it's a lot of orange. And it's a lot of orange because I'm basing this off the logo, which again is an orange. And as you can see over here, it's really three colors. It's this orange, it's this looking weird looking yellow and green. So I make my color theory and I start designing my colors like that. Now you may be wondering, where are the colors? That's a good question. They're over here, and these are all the colors that I picked using the theory. So whenever I need something like a blue or something, I just go over here and, for example, say, okay, I need to go with a blue. So I'm just going to go over here and just change it to that. Well, that doesn't look like blue, does it? So, for example, this one does. So I go over here and I'm picking a blue based on that color theory. So I'm kind of like going in advance of how I do things. But again, going back to our XD example. So if I'm going to go over here and I'm going to, I don't know, do a header, and I'm going to start doing a header. Let me do a rectangle over here. So let's say I want to draw a rectangle and you're like, oh, where are the colors that you did? So the colors that I did, and that's the cool thing about using an Adobe Suite, is that I can go over here with Adobe, go to File, and open CC libraries. And what it will do is it will open the green stuff that I saved previously. So if I want to go with this green, I can say, okay, I'm going to go with this green over here. And there you go. Just like that, you have it. So I usually go like that. And let's say this is the monochromatic process of it. I'm just going to hit save, and that's going to save it into my library over here. So there you go. There you see. So I can go over here and I can say, okay, maybe I don't like this green. I like this one. And I start fiddle with it until I find something that I truly like. And this is why I said it's half science and half art. I'm using the science to base off the color theory, but I'm also kind of making the decisions as I go along and say, yes, no, I'm going to discard it. I think I like this one better, and so forth and so forth. And this is why it's important, in my opinion, to save all of this before you start doing your work. And this is why I said when you have this blank screen that you're like, oh my God, what should I do? I usually have this stuff already good to go. I have both the colors palette defined and I have my typography already made out. I already made the decision as to what am I going to do. So that's more or less what I do. I mean, I go through here and I save it. Like for example, you see this red. This complements really well. This complements really well. So I could use buttons like this. Like for example, I don't know. I could use like a button over here and say, wait, rectangle. Sorry, I could use a button like this over here. Use some border radius of I don't know, 12 pixels. Hit enter, do like this, and say something like this. So I can start seeing that this is going somewhere color wise. Now this may not be the best example, or you might say, "Look, this looks ugly," but you can always change it to something that you feel is far better suited for your particular project. Split complementary, double split complementary. I didn't go through those. Those are a little bit advanced, but if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. This is the square one that I mentioned. Again, it has a shade of blue. I might use the blue for links, because I don't like the default blue with links. So I might go ahead and use this blue that looks really good and it complements really well off of this logo. Compound is over here. I didn't explain that one. And shades are just shades. You hit the save button, and that is that. I mean, this is one of my main go-to tools when it comes to designing websites, and you should use it as well when you're doing your project. Another thing that I absolutely love, it didn't work for this particular color, is that you can go over here, hit the explore button, and what it will do is it will search for anything that is either this hexadecimal color or something that is going to be similar. And what it does, and this is why I absolutely love this, is because all of these palettes have been designed by other people out there. And as you can see, some of them are just flat out gorgeous. Again, it depends on what your perception is. But if you look at, for example, I absolutely love this one. So if you could say, wow, I love this one, I want to add this to my library, and did it add? Yeah, it added it to the GreenGeeks webinar, and I go back into my thing over here, and now I have the shade of yellow, which is absolutely gorgeous. I think it's really good, and this looks really well together. I'm like, okay, this is looking good. So this the explore tool, I think this is one of the reasons why I love Adobe, because I'm working with colors on the go, on the fly. For example, I absolutely love this one because I can say, oh, I can use this as a link color, or I can use this as my text color because it's a dark color and it's not necessarily black. This one I like as well. And I just hit the ones that grab my attention. Like for example, this one I definitely don't like. I think it's too vibrant, too chilly, too But again, it comes with the experience of doing your work, and you just save the ones that you truly like, and you before you know it, you're good to go. And this is why I said it's half art, it's half science. It's not. There's no science behind well, maybe there is behind choosing these colors, but when I'm looking at this, I get feelings out of it, and I say yes, or I definitely say no. And I'm just saving these, saving, and before I know it, I have this huge blurb of colors out there, and this is how I start making my decisions. Okay, so this is the tool I absolutely use the most, Adobe Cueler. Another one I used to use a lot were color lovers. Color lovers, as the name implies, it follows the same concept of Adobe of this over here of exploring, because it's like a social network of color palettes. If you go to browse, you can browse for either palettes or patterns, but I go with palettes. And what I do is I search, and I just hit the hexadecimal code. I'm gonna paste it. Let's see if I still have it on my clipboard. I do. So I hit the search palettes, and nothing is gonna come up because, as I do in the test, nothing came up. I think the one that came up was, I think it was B. Yeah, because I was going down, 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 down. So let me hit B. There you go. So this one came up. So this one I like. And the reason I like it is because, remember, I said the whole thing about black not being a color. This shade of color looks good for a text color, for a body copy. Body copy, it's usually the dark one when you put it against white, but this one doesn't look like black 100%. I try to avoid using 100% black for my body copy because, again, I feel the color isn't quite real. It's just the complete absence of light. So I usually go with these. I particularly like this one, and the reason why I stopped using color lovers is because, yeah, you can download them here. You can download them as an SVG. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to download that as an SVG, and I'm going to hit the OK button. And let's see if it opened. Did it? Oh, no, it's because, uh-huh. So I'm going to hit that again and open with Adobe. Okay, so there you go. So I have that. And what I usually do is I just copy it and go to my board over here and just paste it. And now I have this, and I usually drag it outside of my board, and I minimize it as much as possible because I'm going to have a lot of these guys. So, for example, if I wanted to say, oh, I need some body copy color. Let me do this two times. Let me do this two times, and I'm going to drag this below here, and I'm going to do this black 100%. And I'm going to use, for this one, I'm going to use this color that I was particularly interested in. So if I'm going to zoom in so that you guys can ultimately see. So yeah, they both look very similar, but this one to me is not 100% real. I think this shade is a little bit better. It's a little bit easier on the eyes, and I'm going to go and say, okay, I might consider this color for my body copy. So again, I'm saving, I'm viewing, and I'm making decisions as I go. So Color Lovers is a cool tool. It's a free tool. You can save that stuff, and you can view any hexadecimal color out there. And again, I base that off of the logo, and I just import it to my project before I get going. The third tool I use a lot, I've stopped using it because I think Adobe Color is getting better and better. It's Color Scheme Designer tool. It's this one over here. It's Color Scheme Designer. It's this one over here. They have both two versions. They have this one, and they have this one called Paleton.com. Sorry about the ads. They gotta make money somehow, I guess. So they have both. The cool thing about it, and was, in my opinion, was that you were able to download this. Wait, you were able to download this many years ago. They stopped doing that, and I don't know why. I mean, it was a really cool feature. But what you could do is you could do the same thing. Here you have the complement. Here you have the triad, tetrad, analogic, and whatnot. You were able to download it, but they took that option off, so I don't really use it that much anymore. Whereas this one, Paleton, they do have it. So I copy the code over here, And again, you have the base, you have the analogous, you have the triad, and you have the tetrad, which is a square one, and that's about it. Yeah, the monochromatic and one color. So this one has far fewer. It has fewer options, but it does have a download button that you can actually use over here. It has a tables export function over here, and you can use the color swatches tool. So it can open it for Photoshop, hey, and it can even open it for GIMP. GIMP is a free photo processing editing tool, and Sketch is one from Mac. But I go with Photoshop because that's the one I use. Color list, again, you can go straight with HTML, CSS, and the likes. But again, like I said, I feel the Adobe one is far better. It's a better user experience when it comes to design, and this one it's just not there anymore for me. I mean, I used to use it a lot back in the day when Adobe wasn't as cool as it is now. Another thing I used a lot because remember, I told you guys I like to go from white to black. It's this side over here. It's make tintsandshades.com. So this website again, it's really really easy. So it's you basically paste again a hexadecimal code. I'm going to use the GreenGeeks one. You paste it over here, and what it does is it's going to make shades. And remember, that's what I told you guys previously. White is complete light, black is the absence of it, and everything else in between is going to be an adjustment of that light. So again, sometimes you may have a project where you can't overdo it with a lot of colors. A good tactic to use is using shades in order to get a different feeling squeezed out of that constraint, right? So this is something I use a lot. May go ahead and just do a snapshot like this, do a screenshot like that, and what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to drag that stuff into XD, which is the tool that I use. So I go and paste that, and I just going to go and do it like this. I know my workflow is pretty messy around the edges. So I go like this, and I'm like, okay, wait a second, something happened. Okay, so I post that over here. So again, if I say I'm just like, okay, I need a shade, I can't use this button. So again, I use this, and then I'm gonna go like that, and I'm gonna say, okay, like that, maybe like that, maybe that looks good to you. It doesn't look that good to me, but hey. So yeah, I use that a lot. I could say, okay, maybe I want to use my body copy and use it a little bit more go towards the black. And no, I still love this one most. So again, Shades it's a really cool tool that I use. Make tintsandshades.com. Okay. So as you saw, my process, I do research. I ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot about audiences, about perceptions. I usually ask clients, or before I start a project, if I do my own project, or if you are working on a particular project, you should ask yourself, if I am a car, what car would my website be? And you would be surprised at the answers. Some say Toyota Hilux 1978. Others will tell you Aston Martin. Others will tell you a Ferrari. You might say, "Oh, I am a Hyundai Santa Fe." Again, ask yourself those type of questions. What is my website? What should my website resemble? Who are my users? And this way, you're going to land a lot of answers, and you're going to translate that into colors. Remember, each client, I should have said each project is different. Each project is different. So if you're working on a project in your business, and your business is a consulting business and mine is a web design agency, our projects are going to be completely different. So our color decisions are going to be completely different. So if you are a lawyer and I am a kindergarten teacher, our selection of colors is going to be completely different, even though the theory wise both will have the same colors in the end. The third tip that I have for you as far as my process is concerned: expand your mind. I mean, rules are meant to be broken. I am a rebel by cause, so rules are meant to be broken. Break the rules with colors, innovate. Like I said, try, see, say for yourself, okay, this doesn't look good. Okay, or yeah, this definitely like looks good as well. But don't hold back as well. But hold back as well. Okay, by this I mean don't go overboard. Like don't finish with with 30 colors on your website because it's going to be really hard for people to know or differentiate what you have in mind. So try to keep it to a minimum. As far as colors, I can't tell you what the maximum amount of colors is per website. It really depends on your client. Yeah, I mean, on your project, on who you are, and what you have in mind for your particular website. So again, it's a lot of trying and discarding, which is my fifth recommendation. Like you're gonna have to discard like a lot. I like to quote Winston Churchill on this, that he says that success is going from failure to failure without losing your enthusiasm. So don't see the negative of saying, okay, I worked on this for 3 hours, I gotta discard it. Yeah, you gotta, because your project is going to look better like this, or your business might look better like this. So in the end, it's a learning experience, and you learn from it. So feel okay to discard. The sixth item is you need just know the theory. I mean, you don't need to apply the theory as if it was a recipe that you have to follow it to perfection in order to get the colors to perfection. The theory is out there just for you to understand. So if a client tells you, or if you well, yeah, if client says, why did you pick this color, you have the theory to back it up. Or if you're doing your website for your own, you feel safe knowing that you put some theory behind the process. And if a friend of yours or a customer of yours says, I don't like this color, well, you have at least some inner peace knowing that you did the research and you did the work in order to get to that particular color. So just know the theory, and that's that. Use the resources. I mean, the resources out there is to make your life easier, to make your life faster. So when you are doing your website, you will have those resources at your disposal, and you will make better decisions and faster decisions with it. Eighth, have your own process. I kind of explained to you what my process is. So by the time I'm done picking the colors for my, basing that off of my logo, I'm going to have like a lot of these guys, and I will have a lot of these guys to the sides. My projects look really messy between commas, but it's part of my process that I use. Use swatches or Adobe Suite. It's my recommendation. Again, I like it because it integrates really well with what I do. The 10th is see a lot. Always try to look for things when you have a trained eye, and when you have done this a lot, or when you've done a lot of projects on yourself. When you are browsing through this, instead of saving them all to having them all, you are more or less gonna infer or know which ones are definitely good for your particular style. With this, I also like to give a story about Van Gogh. He's the painter. He's a Dutch painter, Vincent van Gogh. I don't know how to say it in English. Sorry, I lived in Holland. So Van Gogh. He's a Dutch famous painter. And if you guys have followed his work, you will notice that he used to paint a lot of dark colors in his youth. He used to use a lot of dark, somber, sad colors. Like his portraits were really sad. They were really good, but they were really somber, sad, and they had this feeling of sadness between them. And the second half of his career, he used a lot of vibrant colors like blue, yellow, and the likes. And you may ask yourself, how did he transition from this to that? And the story is quite simple, actually. He received a postcard out of Japan from a friend of his, and he received a postcard. And when he saw that, he saw the Japanese style of colors. They were using these vibrant reds, vibrant yellow, vibrant colors. And he looked at that and he was like, okay, this looks really cool. Maybe I should transition as an artist to using these colors for my paintings. And that's exactly what he did. And that's why I tell you guys, like, see a lot, try to see a lot, see everything that you can design, and you can more or less look at things from a different perspective. This is why I love looking at billboards when I'm driving, and I can see more or less, what the color and what the type choices are going to be, so I can, criticize it a little or say, man, that is an excellent work out there. That guy knows his stuff, or that person knows his stuff. And yeah, see a lot. And last, shadows are your friends. They are your friend if you want to keep it to a minimum as far as color choices are concerned. It's a really cool emergency lane that you're going to have out there if you want to use something. If you can't go overboard with colors, as you saw over here. I mean, yeah, this is basically based off of the green, but I'm just using different shadows out there. Again, sometimes you will be asked, or you're going to say to yourself, I don't want to go overboard with colors, so shadows are ultimately your friends. Okay, and that is that as far as colors are concerned. So now we are going to go with fonts. The first thing I'm going to say is typography is a secretive design element, yet people read our content. So what do I mean that? That sounds really secretive. Yeah, that's exactly what it means. We read a lot of content, but we truly don't take notice how it's designed. We only know that if you get it right, people will feel okay reading your stuff, reading your website. They're gonna feel okay about it if you do it right. They're gonna feel okay, and nothing goes on. But if you get it wrong, people are gonna notice, and people are gonna leave your website, and they're gonna be upset. Not upset, but they're just gonna leave because something is really difficult to read, and they're gonna just leave. They're gonna say, "Okay, this I can't do this." They're gonna leave. So what I want to say this is that bad typography will break a website. There's absolutely no denying about this, but because it makes the experience unpleasant. So this is why I said it's a secretive design element, because when it's good, nobody will notice. It's kind of like my job, yeah. If you think about it, nobody calls me when things are going well. They only call me when something breaks. So typography works exactly like that. It's when it's good, nobody will notice, but when it's bad, people will just gonna leave, and people will notice. So we see tons of different labels a day. We read tons of stuff per day, and screen apps, signs, street signs, airport signs, supermarket. When we're reading stuff, we see a lot of labels. We read a lot of things, and they are absolutely everywhere. So typography role is to be there in a secret manner in order to be legible, to be readable, and for people to read that stuff in order to make decisions out there. So this is why I think it's really, really important to understand the theory, because when you are working for your project, inevitably you're going to have to make that decision. Like, how do I get this right so that people don't leave? Okay, so we're going to cover the basics of typography, elements that everyone needs to understand in order to, again, make better decisions. So what are the basics? The basics are going to be stuff that what type of type is it, what a baseline is, what spacing between characters means, stuff of that nature, so that you understand the basics of typography, and you can, experiment on your own and make, better design decisions. There are three types or kinds of typefaces. I would say there are three types of families. People would argue that there might be more, but I like to say that there's three out there. Serif, which is this one on the, I have them all three on on the right side, on the green side. Serif, they are the most traditional typefaces. They are the old ones. They are the ones that came when press was invented. The press was the stuff that this Gutenberg guy did, where you could print stuff and people were able to read things. So serif is the oldest typeface out there. And as over the years, designers, type designers, they're called, innovated more and more. They started to do more serifs and different styles, different weights, different features. It started to evolve just like design does. So it started to evolve, and eventually we came into the 19th century, and we did something called sans serif, also known as Gothic when it started. So, what's the difference between one and the other? Basically, the serifs have extending features. And what do I mean by that? Let me go to Illustrator over here and say, hello, I am a serif. I'm going to put like that, and I'm going to make this big over here. And I'm going to copy this, paste it over here. Hello, I am a sans serif, like that. So I'm going to center this, well, yeah, a little bit. So to pick this, let me close this. And let me hit Command T, and let me do, how many here? Like, no, Del. I'm going to use a Del today. Or let me use Mr. Mrs. Eves, like this. Well, because this is really obvious here. And I'm going to use Mr. Eves. Mr. Eves. So Mrs. Eves and Mr. Eves are a family of husbands, but they're also types. So as you can see over here, they have these serifs have these little things, these little sticks here. It's really visible in the H. It's this stick over here, this one that goes over here. The E doesn't have it, but the L does. It's this little stick that goes like that. Those are called serif typefaces. Hello, the I, the A. You see this little curve like that that goes up. This M over here, the A. We already covered that. The S, like it's beautiful. It has this little stick at the end. That's what serif typefaces are. That's they have these little sticks. They are called extensions. I think are they called extensions? Yeah, extending features. I'm sorry. They have these extending features, and that's basically what a serif is. A sans serif, on the other hand, doesn't have that. So as you can see, it's really visible with the A. It's just like that. It dies like that, and that's really it. That's really the difference between one and the other. Now, usually people will say that a serif is an older typeface than a sans serif, and historically it is true. It is true. I mean, when we started to, when press was invented, this was the typeface that was used the most, and this was used in the 19th century. I think it's shortly after the Industrial Revolution started. So again, type is an art by itself, so it started to evolve more and more into that. So the difference between one and the other is basically that. Now, all of them have families within the families, but I'm not going to go over that because that would be a little bit. We will run out of time with this webinar. So basically, that is the difference between one or the other. Decorative, which is the last one, it's basically a scripted, handwritten type. So some type face designers, they might use their own hand to do it, and they're going to look exactly like this. So going back into our example over here, I can copy and paste this and say, okay, I want to use a decorative, and I'm going to open this over here, and let me scroll down. Let me see one. No, like for example, Bradley hand bolt. So this one, again, it's not my. I'm a decorative. I am a decorative. To me, it looks a little too jagged, too edgy. So this is something I would definitely not use for one of my projects, but I'm going to leave it like that so that you can see an example. So this looks a lot more handwritten. This looks a little bit more geometric, and this one looks a little bit more traditional, serious. So you can more or less infer which one looks informal versus formal. So going back into our tuxedo, suiting, finding clothes kind of thing, this is a little bit more serious, more formal, more elegant. Whereas this is a little bit more modern look, and this is definitely far more informal or look than the other one. So typefaces, type have their own style, and they have their own characteristics as well. So those are the three ones that you're going to use, and most likely, when you are going to do your website, chances are you're going to have to pick one of these in order to use it for your particular website. So the question will be which one? So we're going to get there in a bit, but first I'm going to explain the theory a little bit more. So each type will have its own hierarchy. Hierarchy means organization. So how do we organize our fonts? We can organize our fonts by weight? Uh, do we use bold? Do we use light? Do we go with extra bold? They will all look differently. So going back here, going back to our example, if I open this, I have this as bold, but it's not the same as this. This looks far lighter. This is the same family, but this looks far lighter. Let me get rid of him, or let me copy this guy. So this is the same family. The difference is going to be the the weight. So one looks a little bit lighter, a little bit sleeker, and the other one looks like, hey, I am here. I am a big, bold guy, and look at me now. And it's gonna feel different. It feels even different if, for example, I use this and then I use that, and I change this to I change this to all uppercase. It says the same, but it feels a lot different one versus the other. Which one looks more authoritative? Well, this one for sure. I can even make it bolder. Do I have it? Yeah, I can make it heavy. Like this is far heavier. This is far I am here versus this one. So again, hierarchy. You can establish a hierarchy using a weight for your particular typeface. So do we go bold? Do we go light? Do we go extra bold? Color, well, we have to go back to color theory. Which color should I use? What is my main color going to be for this particular type of font? Again, what is the context of it? Is it going to be a title? Is it going to be a heading for your particular website? Is it going to be body copy? Is it going to be a definition? What is the context of that particular type for this situation? Size, again, size says it all. What sizes should I use? Again, what is my sizes? What are my size choices going to be? Which one is going to be the one for my type, for my body copy? So it's not going to be the same size for this versus I am a header for this. So that's something you have to keep in mind. And the style, italic, uppercase, again, this is something I changed. Those are the decisions that you need to make. And why do I say this? Because if you look at the next slide I have over here, this is something without any hierarchy whatsoever, the one on the left. I am just using the same typography both for the header and for the body copy. So I am a title and I'm your copy. Whereas the one on the right, it's a far better thought out process. It's a process where I am using a bold, uppercase header, which is sans serif, and I'm using a body copy of serif that is far smaller than the title itself. So if you look at both, you're going to go far. You're going to go absolutely with the one on the right because I am creating contrast. And this is something that's truly important when you are working on your project. Aim for contrast. Make sure that everybody has their roles. And it's true for organizations, it's true for family, and it's also true for typefaces. Aim for contrast. Sans serif and serif, they have the characteristic that they contrast each other beautifully. The object here is for them to not clash, for them to be in their own right, and that they don't conflict with each other. If you look at the example on the left, you can't distinguish who is the title and who is the body copy. So they are both competing versus each other. So that's a poor design decision that I made deliberately on the left, so that you can actually see what not to do. The objective is for you to make a choice so that both of them don't clash, but to be smooth, yet at the same time to be different. And again, we go back into the clothing example. You are not going to pick the same, like, unless you're wearing a suit, but usually the part you put on the top of your body is not going to be the same as the one at the bottom. They are both going to be different. They're going to be different types of clothing. They're going to have different colors. They might even have different fabrics, but your objective is for them to not clash, but to be smooth, different, to complement each other well. My bread and butter, and I will admit it, it's fine. I usually go with sans serif for titles, and I go serif for body copy if the occasion suits it. Again, Some projects might feel different, like Green Geeks. In going back to our objectives, we are a health company. We like to be perceived as a green company, health, nature, technology, light, peace, all that stuff. So I'm thinking lighter fonts. I'm thinking fonts that are sans serif by definition. I am not going in the route of serifs, because that is a little bit going towards the traditional, the serious, the type of message that I want to perceive. And that's definitely not us as a company. So ask yourself who you are, who you truly are as a business, in order to make that decision. Again, serifs can complement each other beautifully, but they're harder to do. I think the combination of sans serif and serif, it's absolutely beautiful pretty much the entire time. So you can also go with the same family. It's doable. I mean, it's definitely doable. If we go to our example here with Mr. Eves and Mrs. Eves. So Mr. Eves will be this will be our header. And I can go over here and say, okay, this is going to be my body copy. So I'm going to change this to regular. And yeah, this might go well. Let me adjust the size a little bit. So I'm going to go with 48 here, and I'm going to go with 16 over here. So yeah, this could complement each other well. Though if I look at this, and again, this is something that you do with practice. If I go with this, I might think that I'm going a little bit overboard and I'm clashing a little bit as far as weight is concerned. I think this is a little too bold. So I might go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to go with light over here. And yeah, now I look at this. Oh, I'm sorry. This feels far better. Oh, I'm sorry. This feels far better as opposed to what I had previously, which was this, right? If you compare this to this, I would say that this creates a far better contrast between the two. Maybe this is a little bit too dark, from too heavy. So I'm going to go and adjust this a little bit, and I'm going to say absolutely. So I like this a little bit more, and I'm going to say, okay, this definitely feels a lot better. So yeah, I'm using two of the same family, but I am just making the hierarchy explicit by going with the weight and the size. So big, bold titles and light, smaller body copy for my text. So that's a design decision I made, and I'm clearly establishing what my hierarchy is going to be. With serif, it's a little difficult, because if you follow the same example here, it may not look as smooth. Let me see. Let me see, like that. And Mrs. Eves. Let me go with bold. Oh, this is no, Mrs. Eves is, wait, Mrs. Eves. I only have a handful. Okay. This doesn't look that bad. I mean, it looks good, but again, I'm doing the inverse here. I'm doing sans serif for body copy and serif for titles. It doesn't look bad, but again, here I'm looking at something more traditional, more formal, more serious, as opposed to here. This looks a little bit far more informal, far something lighter than this one. And if I go with the serif here, Mrs. Eves, and yeah, this is definitely serious. This is really serious, but it goes quite well together. I mean, and the reason I didn't do it uppercase, I could fiddle with it and say, no, this looks too much in your face. I don't like it, so I'm gonna tone it down a little bit and go like this and say, okay, this looks a little bit better. But as you can see, these are two families. Usually, when you combine families of the same typeface, they're gonna go well together. So this is a family, and this is another family. So this is the wife, Mrs. Eves, and this is the husband, Mr. Eves. That's really what the font is called. You can see over here, Mr. Eves, and this is Mrs. Eves. So it's, I don't know. That's what the type designer did. I absolutely love this font. It's one of the most beautiful fonts I've seen. So yeah, aim for contrast. Aim for make sure that you do. So you do contrast using the hierarchy: weight, color, size, and style. Maybe I'm going back to my example over here. I want to, for example, do something like this. just a small token so that you guys can see it. I can go over here and paste this and say, okay, well, this doesn't look that good, but again, it's just something that I'm explicitly trying to do to make my point come across. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So we do that. We use hierarchy to make sure there's contrast between them. So always aim for that. The third tip I want to give to you guys: be consistent. It's important to be consistent when we're doing stuff, when we are designing, and we're making our type choices. When you're doing it for your particular business, you have two. In this image, you have two examples. If you were to choose which one is better, you are going to go 99% of the time with chapter one. Why? You would say, well, the reason is that on the left, I only have two families of fonts. I have two colors, red and black, and I have four different sizes. I could argue that maybe possibly three. Whereas on the right, I have four font families, I have four colors, and I have four different sizes. So be consistent about that. And this is why when you saw me fiddle with this, I'm sorry. Wait. I usually get stuck. Okay, right. This is why when I started doing here, I was making the choices here, and you have to be consistent with it. And this is also part of the reasons why I like prototyping with XD, because with XD I can hit this little guy over here. This is called my assets. It's called my assets, and I click over here and I hit the click button on this character style, and it's going to save my font choice. So whenever I need to apply it, I just hit over here. So I just go like this. So this is in Helvetica, but let me change it to this. So let's say I have it like this, and you're like, okay, I want to change it to Helvetica. I just click like that, and it changes to Helvetica, just like that. It's the same with colors. You can go over here and you can save it, and you have your color over here, or you can have your button saved like that. Well, I'm going into the XD a lot, but the thing is, be consistent about it. Like, try to be as consistent as possible. To do so, make sure you define what your sizes are going to be. So, what is my size is going to be for my header one, header two, header three, body copy, menu items, anything that people will read. Clearly define what the size is going to be. Now, if we have time, I am going to show you how I do that, how I define that, because it can be overwhelming, right? Because you can't keep track of everything within the website. So what I usually do is I use a scale of that. We're going to get there in a bit, but I use a scale and I just use multipliers to do so. But we'll get there in a minute. But the important thing is be consistent and make sure that you keep it throughout your document. The next tip: work with alignment. Right? How do you want to align things? Aligning creates balance. It creates white space, negative space. So make sure that if you align everything the same, it's going to create confusion because people are not going to be able to follow it as you read. So make sure that when you align something to the right, left, or center, make sure that you think about what the context is and why do you want to do that. For example, on this particular website that I work on, I usually, one of my the way I design things is that, let me see if I can show you guys. Here I have stuff aligned to the left, but if we go, like for example, on this map. So on this map, I have things assigned to the left because I have the map to the right. So I align the text to the left. Why? Because I want to create some distancing between the two components so I can clearly separate one from the other. Whereas here, I have the map on the left. So now I align my text to the right, okay? Because I want to leave the image, the map in this case, on its own. And I don't want the text to be in the way. Yeah, you could change it and it will still look like this if I align it to the left. But now, in my opinion, as a person that does this for a living, I feel that the map and the text is like too next to each other, and I'm not creating the distancing that I need in order to fully separate both entities, those both design components. So I'm going to say, yeah, definitely like that. See, another thing I feel I made a mistake over here. I think this is too much because it's extending. So I might go over here and go like that and say, okay, go like that. So again, I am leaving the map a little bit on its own. I could even go further and say, okay, I definitely need to give this guy some air like that. And now I have something where I can clearly define my hierarchy to the right. You know, what's aligned to the right, the text will be aligned to the right, and the map is going to be as its own component over here. So that's exactly what the alignment will do. So make sure that when you are aligning things, aim for balance. Aim for balance between things, no matter what your objective is going to be. If you align everything the same, it will create confusion, which leads to my next tip: white space. White space creates, again, it creates balance. So if you look at this screen over here, they're both saying the same thing, but one has better spacing, one is easier to read, and the other is too crammed up. It's difficult to know which one is which one is which. The one on the left, the text, the font size from within the header and the title and the body copy, it's too much. The difference is too small, so it's difficult for me to read. And I also think the text is too cramped up. The body copy is too large, whereas the one on the right, it creates a better balance. Why? Because font size is smaller, text is clearly separated from the body copy, though I think it's a little bit too much of an overkill. But again, it's up to you, and it's just better to read. So think of white space as air. Again, going back to our example over here, I'm creating a lot of space between this for each entity to be separated. Now, one could argue that perhaps this title is too close to the text, but I usually like to keep the title close to the body copy because it associates things. So when people are reading this, they're going to say, "Oh, okay, Highlands," and they immediately know that this text belongs to Highlands. I'm creating something called proximity. Okay, but it's important for you to understand that white space, it's a good design feature. It's something that you should definitely use. The second thing is going back to contrast 2.0. Make sure there's sufficient contrast with both your text and your background. Reading this again, one is harder to read than the other. The one on the left is harder to read because the background is too light, and the type is too light as well. Whereas the one on the right, it's a little bit better to do. If you are unsure whether you have enough contrast or not, there are contrast checking tools out there. I use this one from snook.ca, and basically you fill out the foreground color and you put the background color, and it's going to give you if you are actually doing this or not. If I, for example, I don't know, what should I use? Let's use the green from GreenGeeks. That will definitely collide. Let me see. If I use, for example, this, and I change it to this, let's see if it passes. It definitely will not pass because I am creating a background of green, and as you can see over here, it's not compliant with other accessibility features out there. Remember, also, people with accessibilities will read your content. So if you are creating background colors that are not sufficiently contrasting with your body copy, it's gonna be problematic. Let me see if I change this to white. It still doesn't pass. Huh. Wow, that's really strict. But okay. So always remember that. Always remember that people are going to read your content. So make sure that you wanna do the job right in order to create contrast. Our objective here is readability. So make sure that this is actually readable. So on to the anatomy of type. I'm going to go over this a little bit fast, but it's for you to understand how characters work and what they are. It's important for you to know this because when it comes to picking fonts, you will probably look at fonts that have similar characteristics such as these when you are comparing them. Okay, so the anatomy of type, we can divide type by its baseline, its medium, its x height, what the ascenders and descenders are, the line height, and kerning and tracking. Okay, so let's get going. So the baseline is basically where characters sit, where characters are resting. So if you look at the word Sphinx over here, you will see that the red line is our baseline. So each type has its own baseline. And Illustrator, if I select over here, you will see the baseline in a blue row over here. And if you select this one over here, you see the blue row over there. So that's really it. I mean, there's no much science to it. That's what a baseline is for a particular typeface. So every typeface will have its own baseline. Median, on the other hand, is the ceiling of lowercase characters. So as you can see on this red line, the median is where the ceiling will be. So going back into our Illustrator example over here, the median for this is going to be this over here, where I'm putting where I'm putting the guide. If I select this over here, the median is going to be here, more or less, and the baseline is going to be exactly here. Okay, so I have that, and I'm going to put the word X here. Okay, I'm going to put the word X. So every type has its baseline and its median, right? That's basically it. So this line is the baseline and this line is the median for all, for this particular row of text. And this one over here, it's this one and this one respectively. Now, why is this important? It's important because of its X height. The X height is the space between the median and baseline. Letter X is going to be our reference. Why the letter X? Don't ask me. I really don't know, but it's going to be a reference. And the reason I'm going through this theory is because when we are pairing fonts, we should aim for fonts that have a similar X height. And to show this visually, let's go here. To show you visually over here, to show you visually, like that. Let me get the mouse. You know, I don't know why I'm not using a mouse. I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to paste it over here. Make sure that you have two typefaces that are the same height. In this case, they are. And what am I going to do? What am I doing here? I'm putting both as best as I can on the same baseline. And as you can see over here, both behave pretty well. They both have similar X height. So that gives me a sign, a clear sign that both will complement each other well. A bigger X height will mean that the font is easier to read at smaller sizes. That's really it. So again, are you going to use small font sizes a lot or not? If you are, then you are better off with a bigger X height. To show you again the example, so if I go and copy this over here, but now I'm going to change the family to, let's say, Avenir Sons, and I'm going to go with Avenir Book. This one has a different X height. This is a far larger X height. As you can see over here, hello, I'm a sans serif. I'm going to put the X over here. So, never mind. This one has a larger X height than this one. So if I were to combine both, I would say perhaps I would discard it because I'm going to say, okay, the Avenir one has a bigger X height. Sure. What will it mean though? It will mean that this one, let me get rid of the guides, right? It basically means a bigger X height. Like I said, it means that it's font that is easier to read. I'm sure if you look at the screen right now as it is, this one is better, easier to read than these two. But again, it's important that you know this theory in order to make decisions. You don't need to adhere it as it was a recipe or something. It's just something that if you're stuck as to which one to use, you can go to this tactic and compare and say, oh, this one has a similar X height to my header over here. Obviously, I will put the header at the same size. And I would say, okay, that means they're going to complement each other quite well. They're going to complement each other well, and they're not going to be in each other's way when it comes to putting them on your particular website. Okay, the ascender, descender, this is pretty easy. It's basically the little stick that goes above the median and below the base height, the baseline. So it's not noticeable for any of the characters I did here. But for example, for the letter F, or for the letter J, or for the letter H, these are all letters that have ascenders. So again, I'm going to put the baseline over here, the median over here, and I'm going to put the baseline over here. And again, a median is important because you want to compare fonts just like the X height to see how well they behave when it comes to both the ascender, which is this little stick over here, this little one over here, and the descender, which is this little height over here. So going back over here, this is our descender height, and this is going to be our ascender height. Again, it's just a reference for you to understand when you're comparing fonts and say, okay, these fonts have similar descender and ascender height. So most likely they are going to behave perfectly within each other. They're not going to be distorting or competing for space when it comes to your designs. Okay. Next up is the line height. So a line height is the space between two consequent baselines. This is really, really important when it comes to print. You have it in websites as well. So if I go to Illustrator over here, and wait, let me go back. Hello, I'm sans serif, and hello, I am just Lauren Ibsen. Ibsen. Sorry for my Latin. So it's like this. It's like this. So right now, if you see it over here, and I go over here, do this guide here, and do this. So basically, this little square that I'm going to put in red, like this. Yeah. So basically, this little square, this is my line height. This is my line height. This is how it's going to behave. So if you look at this, I'm sorry, if you look at this and you change the line height and you change it by going here to this little value, if I do something like this is going to be completely unreadable. But as you can see, as I'm going and going and going, this is a little bit squished together versus this, right? So you could argue that this is better design because it's closer to each other, but its line height it's too constrained. So usually with headers, what I do is I set the same font size as I set the line height. So if I copy this and put this, and it didn't work like this, and then like that, I do it like that, and now the line height is smaller, but I think the text it still looks good. It looks readable. If I do it two apart, it creates, again, it creates a negative space that I don't necessarily like because I like to keep the title as close as possible to each other. But it's important that for you to know what line height is, because this is something that you are going to alter when you are designing your website, right? I usually use a grid, and this is also something that reasons why I use XD. In XD, you can create your own grid and work your way from there. Kerning, I'm gonna go over it really fast, but kerning is basically the space between two letters. So between the J and the U, that's kerning. Between the U and the S, that's also kerning. It's important for letters, as you can see here. So the FX, it doesn't have a lot of kerning. It's really tight. It's really tight. This is really important when you're designing logos, but not so much for the web because the web doesn't allow you to change kerning on an individual letter. So if I was to go over here and change the kerning to perhaps 15, now there's even better. There's more space between the X and the F, and pretty much between all of them. So wait, yeah, like that. So like that. And yeah, you see? So now I'm creating more space and distancing things a little bit more out. I still think it's a little too spaced out, but with kerning, you can do this, and that's basically what the word means. Is it's the spacing between two letters. The following concept, and this is something that you can do, is called tracking. So tracking is basically the same thing, but with the entire line of text. Okay, so tracking is something that you can definitely do with CSS. It's something that you can do on your website, and you create this space in between characters. Again, these are values that you can play with as you are designing your websites. You can do this either, it doesn't matter if you use Elementor or you're just using straight up code or you're designing in Photoshop. These are the things that you can fiddle with before you launch your website. Okay, so that was it as far as theory is concerned. Okay. Next up, I want to talk about some of the services out there that you can see that you can actually use fonts because type designers get hungry as well. I say this because in theory, and you should keep this in mind, when you are using fonts that are not yours, that you didn't design, you must have the permission or the proper license to use it. Otherwise, you could get in some serious trouble, legal problems, because you are using something you're not authorized to use. So these services that I'm about to list, these services, what they do is they will license the fonts for you. They will pay the royalties to the type designers, and obviously you have to pay as well to use the service every month. So what it does is it takes all the legal stuff out of the way for you. So you can do that, and you can pay for it, and you can use your own fonts should you like them, and serve them within your website. So the first service I want to discuss is as Google Fonts. Google Fonts has a service called fonts.google.com, I think, exactly. It's fonts.google.com, and this is going to open a lot of fonts out there. So Google currently has 1,043 families. That's a lot of fonts out there. And what you can do is, again, you can filter them out between handwriting, monospace, and serif. Like, for example, if I'm just looking for serif, I can just do it like that, and I have 200 families of font sizes. I can type something, go GreenGeeks, like that, and I could just go ahead and see something that I like. Again, it goes like colors. Like the more you see fonts, the more you're like, okay, I absolutely love this one. For example, I don't know. Let's go with any. I like Sanchez. So Sanchez, I go with Sanchez, and if it's something that I like, I could serve it and use it for my particular price license. The cool thing about Google Fonts is that it's 100% free, and free is good. If you are starting out there and you don't want to spend any money with it yet, Google is a great tool for you to serve fonts. And chances are, many websites, many free themes, many Elementor projects work with Google Fonts. Hey, it's not bad. It's a really cool feature because it's a lot of fonts, it's a lot of quality, and they are very, very well thought typefaces made out there. So if you want to use it, you can select the style. Like, for example, I want to go with regular. You do that, and it's going to open this stuff. And what you basically do is you basically copy this and you paste it within your theme, within your WordPress theme. You can paste it, and you go over here and you go to the header of your theme. Uh, well, I didn't have it for this example, but basically you go to your header within your WordPress theme. Like, for example, let me go really quick. Content, themes, GM. For example, I go over here and let me see, open with. Okay, open with. So I open that and I go to my WordPress installation. And basically, what I'm looking for is I'm open the editor. I'm sorry, and basically you're looking for this file, the header.php, which is within your theme, the theme that you're using, and header PHP. And what you do basically is that you paste that. You paste that, and just like that, you have the fonts ready to be served on your website. Now you gotta declare it within your CSS, and to do so, Google will does this. So what you have to do is copy this and paste it within your style sheet file, and just like that, you have your Google fonts good to go. There are plugins out there that do this for you, but I can't recommend the plugin because it's too specific, because it depends on the service that you're using. Okay, so Google has its own plugin and you can do that. But again, some of the themes such as Elementor and free themes like Astra and the likes will give you the option to do this on the fly. So I think that's even better. They will handle the serving for you. So all you got to do really is pair them. You got to find the fonts that you like and you got to pair them up and work with that. Okay. The other service that I use a lot, it's Typekit. Typekit is now called Adobe Fonts. It comes free if you're using an Adobe suite. Again, it's also another reason why I absolutely love it. And when you browse fonts, it's really the same. It's really the same. So you go over here and you type GreenGeeks. And for example, I'm looking for serif, sans serif, I'm sorry. I'm looking, so I type over here. And the things we went over through, the things that establish a hierarchy, you can filter them out here. Do you want to go with medium weight? How wide do you want to go? Do you want to create contrast between them? What the X height is going to be, and so forth and so forth. So if you see something you like, you hit the little heart over here. This is what I usually do, by the way. When I'm going and I'm saying, oh, I like this, I put a heart to it. This one I definitely don't like. Don't like. I like this one. But Adobe allows you to serve them on the web as well. So if you click this little code thing, it will open this thing for you. You select the families and you select the projects that you want to work with. In this case, I want to work with GreenGeeks. You hit the save, and it's the same thing really. You copy this style sheet that you will paste here on your header file, and from there on, here are the CSS rules that you need to put, on your style sheet file in order to use them as you see fit. But Typekit is a fantastic tool. It's not free. I think it's not free anymore. It only comes bundled if you have Adobe, or I think it does, but you have to you're limited to an amount of downloads per month. I'm not exactly sure. And the other one is it's the same principle. It's fonts.com. Again, I use it and I pay for this service because I have some fonts here that are available here but aren't available in Adobe. So that's also part of the reasons why I pay for these services, because they don't get along with each other, and they don't agree with which fonts who has which fonts. So you gotta pay for them both to get the best out of both worlds. So those are the services that I use in order to have fonts, serve fonts, and don't get into any problems legally, and I can just use them and have my website running like that. Okay. Now, to get some inspiration and to see the pros in action, I typically use these four websites. Being the second one, the one I use the most. And this is especially true when I started, because when I started, I had no idea how I wanted to do it. But now, since I have my own process, sometimes I look for it. I look for it because it's beautiful to see it. But type.io is by far my favorite one. So basically, this is a gallery of websites that were designed. Like, for example, this looks, I have no idea to tell you how beautiful this looks. This looks absolutely beautiful. And it will tell you what the fonts in use are. So in this case, Dharma Gothic is going to be my header and Merriweather is going to be my body copy. Because if you hit the more info, and sorry about those ads, more info, it's going to tell you exactly what the header is going to be and what the content is going to be. So Merriweather, I can infer because I've used it a lot, is a Google font. But the Dharma Gothic, I don't know. So what I usually do is I search for it and I see that the font free has it. So oh, Adobe has it. I'm sorry. Adobe has it. So if I wanted to use it in my project, I would have to go to both Adobe over here, select Dharma, and then go to Google Fonts, Dharma, like that. Search for fonts, search for Dharma Gothic, and then go to Google Fonts and search for Merriweather, and then just do the same thing I just did. Like save the CSS file, paste it, and do it both times, serve them, and then I have them good to go to be used within my theme because I'm serving them straight out of their websites. So again, it's just a website I use for reference to get inspired. I usually scroll and see something that I like and something that I feel that is suitable for my particular project. Like for example, I would never use this for GreenGeeks, even though it's really nice looking, but I would never do that. This one definitely not Green Geeks, but this one over here, this might look something like Green Geeks, and I'm gonna say, okay, if I'm designing Green Geeks website, I may go with this font. Usually, I try it, and that's part of the process that I do. I have the logo over here, and I do exactly like this. I put the header and then I put a body copy and I put the logo on the top and see how well it does. How do they complement each other? How do they mix up? Do they mix up okay? Do they is it a good job? Is it a bad job? How do they do? If the answer is good, I keep them, right? I go ahead and I keep them and I usually move them here and on to the next. And then I start viewing like that. And next thing I know, I have a bunch of selections and I've narrow them down to two or three. And usually that's where I get really picky about it. Then I start comparing the X height, the ascenders, and things of that nature so that I can see more or less what my final decision is going to be. But also, and this is why it's half science and half art. I have an eye for it and I can immediately say, okay, this looks far better. This looks much more beautiful than this one. So I am going to go with this one. And that's really my process. That's really my process. I usually put the logo here, I put a header and I put a body copy and I compare it and see how it does with the logo. For example, if I put the logo, I see this and I think of Green Geeks, I'm like, okay, this definitely no. This is going to be a no. But if I'm going to go like this, and go like this, I might say, yeah. I might say, yeah. So I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that. So I'm going to keep it and I'm going to put it here and I'm just going to dump this and just delete it and move on to the next. And that's how I really, really move from one to the other. So these URLs that I'm going to open them for you. These URLs I use for inspiration purposes only. This is a little bit more print orientated. As you can see, there's some crazy stuff out here done, but it will display, it will tell you what the fonts of each is. Like, for example, this one I really don't like. I mean, it's really, really bad looking. But this one over here looks absolutely beautiful. It's really, really well done. And I gotta give my hats off to the designer because he is using three fonts, three completely different font families. And you gotta be really good to do that because the more fonts that you use, the easier it is for things to break because you are basically mixing different families. Imagine sitting three families at your dining room and all three getting along. It's going to be hard, but hats off to this designer for doing such a great job. And other one I use is Typewolf. It follows the same principle of having fonts. You look at it and you can see what the fonts in use are. This is basically a gallery of sites from a font perspective. So I look and I look and I look, and if I see something that I like, I will definitely say, okay, I want to see more. For example, I'm not seeing anything that I like that I could say, okay, I could use this for Green Geeks. So this is why I said that the process of coming with types can take days because what I am doing really is I'm just looking for stuff that grabs my attention that I can say, okay, I like this, or this is something I can definitely use for Green Geeks. And I could go. I'm at page 4 already of this, but I could definitely go to 300 pages if I have to. It really depends on the time and it depends on the project that I'm working on. And again, if it's for your business, take your time. Do this right, fiddle with it, and change with it until you reach something that you absolutely love. Okay, and let's go on to the next slide because I'm running a little bit out of time. So that was a lot of theory. So how do we choose? So again, I gave you pointers here and there. Have your Trojan horses. By this I mean pick the fonts that you feel like as you do this more and more, you will have fonts that you're going to like more and more. You're going to have fonts that you're going to love with. The same with clothing. I have a pair of jeans that I use a lot that I absolutely love, and those are the ones I usually fall back to when I'm working on my project. But it doesn't necessarily have to be so because that's why the second item, my second advice is going to be don't abuse it. Always be willing to explore. So you shouldn't use the same font over and over and over, but you should, explore a little bit and come to a decision process, just like the one I did. I mean, it's going to be your process and you're going to be okay no matter what. Again, branding will be your reference. Who is this website for? What is your business? Who are your customers? This is really important when you are doing your website, your WordPress website. Who are you? And nobody better than you can answer that question. You know who you are, so you know what your branding is. You know what you want to be perceived as. So make sure that the font choices that you make are going towards that direction. Less is more, as we saw previously with the example of creating consistency. You can easily go overboard with types with typography. You can go overboard, and next thing you know, you have size here, size there, size this, color here, color that, weight here, weight there, and you are going to go overboard with it. So less is more. What do I recommend? I always recommend going with two families when you're starting. You can go either the same family, you can go with one family and you alter the weight, style, and things of that. Like you create the contrast with them. You can go with two. If you go with two, I usually like to complement them between serif and sans serif for titles and body copy, or vice versa. It really depends again on what the project is. If you use three or four, make sure you're absolutely genius or a god when it comes to designing, because you will might most likely run into trouble if you don't do it right. So again, fifth item, again, less is more. Try to go to keep it to a minimum if possible, and work your way with as little as possible, just enough for you to look fantastic. My sixth advice would be contrast and consistency at the same time. Again, make sure there's some contrast between your headers, between your body copy, your menu items, your links, all of that stuff. Make sure there's contrast. Make sure there's no clashing between them. Make sure that you do a good job so that you can identify each section for what it is and be consistent about it. So don't change that. Don't have something on the homepage and then on another page you're going to have something completely different, because you're breaking the consistency there. Seventh item, legibility, readability. Always keep that in mind. People are going to read your stuff, and make sure it's readable, make sure it's legible always. Because if it's not, people are just going to leave your website and say, okay, bye bye. So always play with that. Always keep that in mind when you are designing. Again, I gave you a few pointers how to create legibility and readability using some of the design elements out there. So always strive for that. Okay, always keep that in mind. Okay. Again, contrast and consistency. Go with fonts who have similar X height when you're narrowing things down, when you're not sure how to proceed. Ascenders and descenders, make sure that they're similar to each other. And my process, again, starts with a logo. I paste the logo on an Illustrator file. And when I see fonts that I like, I just put them there and see how they behave. I have this program called Typeface. It's this little cute fox here. And what it does is I scroll like this, and I just scroll until I see something that I like, and I just click on it. And when I am done scrolling, I translate that into Illustrator here, and I just start to compare and see how it behaves. I do the same with Typekit, and I do the same with fonts.com. That's why I said that going through a process of selecting fonts can be quite extensive, because it's a lot of viewing, it's a lot of discarding, and it's a lot of things to get to that final decision, to the final selection. Okay? Practice. The more you do, the better. And when you practice a lot, when you get good at something, you're going to trust something called your gut, which is it's applicable both here and in life. Trust your gut, trust your instinct. As you do more, you're going to know more, and you're going to have that feeling as to what is good. Mood is really important. Who is this website for? Again, it's not going to be the same type choices if your website is a lawyer, or if you're a lawyer, whereas if I'm a bakery, it's going to look completely different. Seventh and last, second to last tip: avoid justified text. Make sure you justify text either to the left, right, or center. If you do justified, the problem with that is that you are allowing the computer to do that for you. There's one more example I wanted to give you guys. I didn't do it. Wait, how can I do this? And actually, no. No, I don't have it. So I think with that, I am completely done. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to cover one last aspect, which was typography rhythm. I have 10 minutes to go, so I wanted to dedicate that to questions. And with that, I will stop sharing and go back to reality, to humans.
Thank you,
Hello?
Mark. So essentially, business owners, designers have to do a lot of work, a little bit of work before they
Yes.
choose their fonts and color. There's a little bit of background work, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. What's the question?
We're saying that there is work behind choosing fonts and choosing colors. Yeah,
Correct. As a business owner, you should know the psychology behind who your customers truly are, and with that, you can make good decisions about what the colors are going to be for your particular website. I would say that it starts with the logo, but sometimes we already have a logo as a business owner. So just make sure you extend exactly that when it comes with your business as well.
thank you. I didn't see any questions.
Oh.
I know.
Usually, when yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. Usually, when I give this talk, people don't have a lot of questions, but it doesn't mean that people didn't understand. It's just that that's good. That's good. Yeah, I was once disappointed with it, but then I learned. You know what? I think it's because it's clear. It's not over
It
the
was
top
very
or
clear. It was very clear.
yeah.
Okay, so I guess
Okay.
if nobody has questions, we're gonna let people go and go back to their
Okay.
Saturday. And thank you everyone for staying till the end and watching the whole webinar for those who did.
Thank you, everybody.
And we will
And
see you at the next webinar soon.
okay,
You're gonna get an email with all the information as you always do.
good to see you, Phil. You're
Thank you Phil,
welcome.
for the suggestions too. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Great.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.